Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again, I guess, with another video on The Flash Season 9. So we are over the finish line. We have officially crossed it. The Flash as a series on TV has wrapped up after 9 seasons. It feels so weird saying that, doesn't it? It must feel weird after watching it and feel weird after, hearing multiple people say it. And though I think everyone will have their own opinion on the quality of the series finale and whether or not it met certain expectations or whether they're happy of how exactly it ended as a whole, one thing that I hope at the very least most people agree on is that it left Barry, or, the Flash, in a good place, and also teased a promising future for the Speed Force and those within it, though it's a future that we won't get to partake in, or at the very least, you wouldn't think so. But throughout the episode, which was the conclusion to the A New World story arc, as well as the show as a whole, we literally saw Barry create a new world for himself as the Flash to go into, but also his newborn daughter, Nora. The positive and negative forces were balanced out, every character was left in a good place, no one dies, and everyone's just a good and positive place. And right at the end of the episode, we had the doors open to the future of the Speed Force willingly by our favorite man in red, the controller of the Speed Force, Barry Allen. Now, one of the big themes and focuses in the finale, but also just this final storyline, was legacy as well as destiny. And this is, of course, focused with the legacy of Barry and his future family on the line, and potentially that being taken away. And Barry, at the end of the series finale, does take it upon himself to extend the Speed Force beyond his own family lineage, so, it doesn't end with him. And this was done by throwing lightning into the sky and it splitting into 3 different directions to hit 3 future speedsters. But you might be wondering, well, who were they? And what are the characters like in the comics, that we're seeing, translated onto screen? Now, of course, throughout the video, be sure to comment which of these speedsters or characters you would have wanted to see more of if the show got another season, or if there was a spin-off or another show to let these characters fall into or something like that. So yeah, which one, piqued your interest the most, just based off even face value and what they look like. So yeah, right at the end of the episode, we're introduced to 2 newish speedsters from the comics, introduced only over the past 6 to 7 years or so, and one character that is familiar to many Flash comic fans that was actually teased last season in season 8, however, it was only briefly though. Now, before we go over this, I know this tease was frustrating to some. I've seen that. You might be wondering, really, if you actually were a big fan of it, but some found it frustrating, and it's got a pretty valid point, because we'll never be able to see the progression of these characters. But I sort of think that's the point. We know everything has been left in a good place, as I said before, and these characters are there to play into that. It just means the story gets to go on with the Speed Force, with Speedsters, with Barry as a leader, but we don't get to be there. We just know Barry isn't alone in handling any potential issues that may arise, though I wish maybe we got one final Flash museum scene in the future just to see maybe where it all played out, but maybe that's me being greedy. I don't know, you might have to let me know. Now, the first new speedster that we see was actually a familiar face, and this was Avery Ho, who we met during the last season of The Flash back in episode 6, and this was the girl who worked at Fast Track Labs who had some sort of romantic tension, I guess you could say, with Bart, aka Impulse. Now, she did actually do a voice cameo later into last season when she was talking to Mina Darwan, who was her boss, which would have been a very similar version to the character we saw at the end of this series finale, as that was only last year, but the first time we saw her in episode 6 of season 8, that was back in 2013 or 2014 or something like that. So yeah, roughly about 10 years ago. Now, Avery in the comics is the Flash of China and a part of the Justice League of China, like how there is a Justice League of America. Now, if we got to pick up and follow Avery on, more of her journey as a speedster, she would have been an interesting speedster as she has all the knowledge to back her up. I mean, we got to spend some time with her last season in episode 6, so we know a bit of what the character's like, but yeah, she would have been a pretty intelligent speedster. Also, if you notice in the scene in Jitters, they sort of reiterate that she was a bit clumsy and seemed to be running late and a bit disorganized, so sort of somewhat similar to Barry when we first started the show back in season 1. So she could have been a very Barry type character, which would have been pretty cool. Now, next up is the other newish speedster from the comics, who was actually the last new speedster we saw in the series finale. She was sitting in a car, or they were sitting in a car, and this is Jess Chambers. Now, Jess was only introduced 2 or 3 years ago, roughly, so even more recent than Avery Ho. Now, they are from another Earth in the multiverse in the comics and associated with the future state run of the recent DC Comics storyline. Now, though it isn't explicitly said, it seems all these new speedsters are from Earth Prime. I don't think we did any Earth hopping throughout the multiverse throughout that scene, at least from what I could actually tell, or they didn't make it very obvious. Now, Jess has a pretty decent fan base, I'd say, especially considering how recent the character is in regards to its, the introduction to the comics. So a lot of people probably want to see the character now that they've gotten a tease and taste of them in live action. So it'd probably be very frustrating to not see that play out. But the final speedster we saw was one that we hadn't actually seen before, like we had with Avery, but we'd actually heard of them before, or at least slightly had a bit of a tease towards them, unlike Jess Chambers, and that is Max Mercury. Now, this character was teased last season when Barry was in the Still Force and saw his past, present, and future just flash before his eyes, and he mentioned a cycle of names like Cisco, Wally, and then mentioned someone called Max, which was confirmed by the showrunner Eric Wallace to be Max Mercury. Now, Eric Wallace had stated, I think it was between season 8 and 9 maybe, or when season 9 was revealed as the last season, that he would have introduced Max Mercury properly and used him properly if either a season 10 was to happen or if there were more episodes in season 9. It was one of the two. I think it might have been if season 10 happened, but I think maybe if season 9 got 18 to 20 episodes, Max would have played a part in season 9. So Eric Wallace has stated there was more of an intention to use him than the other two. So that's why I'm not surprised that Max was put towards like a bit of a, cliffhanger sort of like loose ending like this. Now, Eric Wallace also said that he would have had a Native American actor play the role, considering the origins of the character from the comics. And as we saw in the finale, we did have a Native American actor play the role, that actor being Trevor Carroll, I think his name was. Now, in the comics, Max also went by the name Quicksilver, but I think Eric Wallace, if he used the character on the show, might have called him Awahota, I think that's how you pronounce it, which means he who runs beyond the winds, and was what Max was called in the comics at times. Now, my only real issue with Max being a part of this, and especially tied in with the other two characters there, is that I would have preferred if Max was an older speedster and had become a speedster before Barry and had just spent more time with the Speed Force, similar to Jay Garrick. But just Max being a part of it, even in the slightest right at the end there, I think that's pretty cool. And as a fan, I think all you can be is, somewhat happy. You saw, as I said before, there are some people that are frustrated that we didn't get to see more, or won't get to see more, I guess you could say, of these characters because we got the tease and that's it. But I think just having the tease there is pretty cool. Maybe it's meant to be a bit of a pain, to add some more emotion that the show is ending. In regards to which of these ones I would have seen the most, I don't know if I have a specific or definitive one. I guess Max automatically jumps there because I'm more familiar with Max from the comics. But to be honest, I would have been happy to spend any time with any of these new speedsters. I think they would have all had their own different qualities and stuff like that. As I said, we've actually spent time with Avery, at least in one episode, so we get to, at least we know a bit more about her and what she would be like as a speedster due to her, attitude and her attributes and her, her own personality and stuff like that. But yeah, I think I would have been happy with any of them, to be completely honest. But one thing that is going to be brought up a lot, and to be honest, it's pretty much just going to be clickbait for the most part, and that is spin-offs. If you saw this scene and you didn't know all this drama that was going on at the CW, you would think that they're setting up a spin-off here. Now, if the CW had not changed ownership and were dealing with all this Next Star drama and shows were being, cancelled or ending left, right, and center, and they were getting all these cheap shows, I would say definitely. I bet you never know. Maybe the Flash would have got a season 10, but then again, the Flash ending was really up to Grant. Grant was the one who decided to end the show at season 9, so they might have done a spin-off here. We never know. A lot of people were asking for a Bart and Nora spin-off, so maybe these characters could have tied into that, and we got older versions of them or something along those lines. I'm not too sure, but spin-offs, as I said, if the CW hadn't changed ownership, I think you could 100% put your belief into something like that happening. I think it'd be a very realistic option because, people would definitely watch it, you'd have to think. But with the current state of the CW and just what we know is happening and just the changing landscape of network TV, I'd say just please don't. Don't put too much faith and hope into that because it's just not going to happen. And I guess the best thing about this is that you can just, in your head, when you're rewatching the show and they do future scenes, when we go in season 3 to the future, or we go once we start in season 5 and season 6 and season 7 and 8 and even 9, and we go to the future, you can just imagine that those speedsters that we see here of Avery Ho, of Jess Chambers, of Max Mercury, they play a part in that Flash story leading up to that future and maybe even beyond. So I think that's the best way to imagine it. And I think that's what Eric Wallace probably intention when he teased these things, because he would know it'd be a bit of a painful teaser, as I said, because you don't get to see it play on. But I think that's maybe the whole point, is that you do go rewatch the show, and when you see those future things, these characters go, okay, well, they would be a part of that. And I think that's the thing to take away from it. That's what I'm going to take away from it. And I know it can be very emotional. I've seen some people post some emotional stuff about it. But I think that's the best way to think about it, at least in my eyes. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like and show support. As I said, let me know in the comment section down below, which of these characters would you have wanted to see most play on, forward, I guess, onto screen, whether if we got a season 10 or if season 9 was longer or something like that. Was it Avery Ho? Was it Jess Chambers? Was it Max Mercury? Was it all of them? Let me know. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down there. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.